The Punisher number 10 from 1988 is an electrifying promise of chaos and moral conflict. This epic cover features two titans clashing in a violent battle. Frank Castle, the cold and calculated Punisher, locked in brutal combat with Daredevil, the crimson-red vigilante of Hell's Kitchen. The story opens not with the roar of gunfire, but with the quiet, unassuming life of an ordinary woman, a nameless figure who becomes a tragic victim of a greater, unseen conflict. She stands at the counter of a drugstore, her worn face hinting at a life of hardship. She clutches her modest purchases, a box of pies and a bottle of Zumatrin pain reliever, her silent companions against the persistent ache that burdens her. As she walks home, the city looms over her, a cold, indifferent backdrop. She is just another figure lost in the crowd, her struggles invisible to the world. Her thoughts turn inward, distracted by her pain and her duty as a mother. In her modest apartment, her child's innocent voice cuts through the silence.
"Mommy, can I have an Eskimo pie?"
Her response is weary but tender, a mother's love shining through her fatigue.
Go on. Then you go outside and play. I have such a headache.
But this headache is no ordinary ailment. The panels grow tense as she retreats to the bathroom, the bottle of Zumatrin now clutched tightly in her hand. She swallows the pills, seeking relief, but instead, her body betrays her. Her throat tightens, her face contorts, and a strangled cry escapes her lips. Gak! The pills spill from her hand, scattering like shattered hope across the cold, unforgiving tile. She collapses, lifeless, her body splayed on the floor in a heartbreaking tableau of despair. The last panel shifts focus to her child, returning to find their mother's lifeless body. A single heart-wrenching word is spoken. "Mommy?" What has led to this tragedy? This is not mere coincidence. It is the result of a sinister hand at play. The Zumatrin pain reliever, tainted and lethal, has claimed its first victim. The woman, a symbol of innocence caught in the crossfire, is but a pawn in the larger narrative of rage and psychopathy, a narrative the Punisher will soon unravel with brutal determination. We begin with a chilling news broadcast, a voice of cold detachment reporting on yet another victim of the poisoned Zumatrin pain reliever. The death toll now stands at 4. The Punisher emerges, a force of nature, a shadow that refuses to stand idly by. Frank Castle, a man forged in the fires of loss, a soldier turned vigilante after the senseless murder of his wife and children. He has become the judge, jury, and executioner. He wears the iconic skull symbol as both a warning and a promise.
Hello, Jehovah's Witnesses.
In a dimly lit apartment, a man with a hulking physique performs a grueling workout regimen, his sweat glistening under the weight of his obsession. Every pull-up, every lift, every rep is done with a precision that speaks of discipline, though the cracks in his mental stability are evident. His obsessive behavior and volatile temper are on full display when his noisy routine draws complaints from a neighbor, prompting him to grab a large knife and intimidate anyone who dares confront him. Meanwhile, a television news broadcast announces a recall of Zumatrin, a drug tied to the corporate giant Zoom Corp. The mysterious man mocks the report, hinting at a deeper knowledge of the company's activities as he examines a bottle of their Sparklene Mouthwash. The plot thickens when Cindy, a concerned woman, knocks on his door. We now learn that the mysterious man's name is Alfred. Their dynamic suggests a strained relationship, perhaps a former lover or a neighbor trying to keep him grounded. She criticizes his behavior, calling him out for his isolation and obsession. These panels tease Alfred's connection to the Zumatrin mystery and sets up his role in the larger story, possibly as a disgruntled former employee looking for revenge on the company that he feels unfairly dismissed him. Elsewhere in the city, Daredevil's name resounded across the airwaves as he emerged on the local news. the Crimson Guardian called upon to address the sinister plague of Zum poisonings gripping Hell's Kitchen. Reporters pressed him, their voices tinged with both fear and hope, seeking to know if the vigilante intended to confront the malevolent force behind the attacks. Standing resolute, his voice steady yet imbued with urgency, Daredevil issued a heartfelt plea. To those responsible, he called for surrender, vowing that justice would be swift but fair, with an unshakable promise of a full and impartial reckoning. The man without fear extended one final opportunity for redemption. Amid the shadows of his relentless pursuit of justice, Frank Castle donned the guise of a federal agent. His path led him to a congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses where whispers of terror reached his ears. They spoke of a mysterious, hulking figure, an angry man wielding a blade, whose menacing presence had haunted them time and again. Castle, ever the sentinel of retribution, accepted their words with solemn gratitude, his resolve hardening as he vowed to confront the specter that dared to sow fear among the innocent. Armed with newfound knowledge about the enigmatic, hulking figure, Frank embarked on the next phase of his investigation, donning the guise of a humble plumber. Fate intervened when he encountered Cindy, a distressed tenant who lit up at the sight of a plumber at long last. In her nervous gratitude, Cindy unwittingly unveiled a critical detail, the name of the elusive figure, Alfred Coppersmith. Sensing opportunity, she persuaded Frank to examine a bothersome sink leak in her apartment. As Frank worked, his keen senses caught an ominous twist. Cindy had reached for a bottle of Sparklene Mouthwash, cheerfully intending to pour herself a cup. But as the liquid poured, a subtle, deadly aroma hit Frank's nostrils: cyanide. His instincts erupted into action.
Ow!
With lightning reflexes, he swiped the cup away just as Cindy was about to sip.
This mouthwash is filled with cyanide.
The sinister plot was thickening, and Frank had narrowly averted a fatal turn. The air in Cindy's apartment tensed as a door slammed nearby, reverberating like a warning bell.
Alfred's home.
The words hung heavy in the room, igniting Frank Castle into action.
No charge for the sink.
With a practiced motion, he shed his disguise, a humble plumber's uniform, to reveal the unmistakable emblem of vengeance, the Punisher's iconic skull, blazing defiantly across his chest.
Alfred!
Cindy's panicked shout tore through the moment, her voice a desperate beacon to Alfred. Alfred turned, his eyes wild with vicious intent, drew a pistol from his jacket. But Frank Castle was faster. Yet Alfred was no amateur. He scrambled, aided by Cindy's intervention, and made a daring leap through the window. Glass shattered. A cascade of jagged shards dropped to the floor as Alfred tumbled onto the rooftop below. But escape was futile. Like a shadow given form, the Punisher pursued, relentless and unyielding. Alfred's flight was halted as Frank materialized before him, a specter of retribution. Fear twisted Alfred's features as he stumbled backward, desperation spilling from his lips.
"You can't do this to me!" he screamed out loud. "I've got rights!"
You have the right to go. Splat! When you hit the pavement.
Frank's response was cold and merciless. This was not about laws, but justice, the kind only he could deliver. With an almost inhuman display of strength, Frank seized Alfred, a man of considerable bulk, and lifted him effortlessly overhead. Alfred's protests became a cacophony of terror as Frank marched toward the rooftop's edge, his intent as clear as the New York sky above. Just as Frank prepared to deliver his final verdict, a voice sliced through the tension like a hot blade through butter.
Hold it!
It was a sound both familiar and resolute, laced with righteous authority. Frank froze, his gaze snapping over his shoulder. There, underneath the city's sun, stood Daredevil, his arrival electrifying the scene. At last, the stage was set. The devil of Hell's Kitchen, face to face with the Punisher, the embodiment of brute force and vengeance.
Put him down.
Get lost, Daredevil. He's mine. You just bought yourself a box of trouble.
I think we should have had this discussion years ago.
You want to waste your time running maggots through the criminal justice merry-go-round. That's your problem.
But once I get them, they're mine.
Daredevil stands tall, a crimson figure of justice rooted in law and due process.
I'm glad we had this little talk. I am sick of your kind of justice. If you understand what this country actually means, you would respect due process.
Beneath him, the Punisher kneels, bruised and defiant. His battered face and unyielding gaze reflect the raw brutality of his worldview.
How many criminals have waltzed in and out of the justice system?
Set free to kill, again and again.
Remember Bullseye?
That's part of the price we pay to live in a free society. Alfred Coppersmith is entitled to his day in court.
Oh, yeah? Well, where is Mr. Coppersmith now?
And just as the dust of conflict begins to settle, from the shadows emerges Alfred Coppersmith. His eyes burn with ruthless intent, and in his grasp, a pistol gleaming under the dim light, poised to deliver a reckoning.
Here, I don't want the Punisher to think I'm picking on him. Change your ways, Frank, or we will meet again down the line.
Fine with me.
As Daredevil vanishes into the night, his silhouette swallowed by the city's skyline, the Punisher remains, a lone figure amidst the silence. The echoes of their clash linger, but Frank Castle is unmoved by Daredevil's impassioned plea for the sanctity of due process. His mind, steeled by conviction, rejects the idealism of a broken system. He knows Alfred Coppersmith will slip through the cracks of justice far too soon. And when that moment comes, Frank Castle will be there waiting for him. As our tale nears its grim conclusion, Frank Castle strides purposefully back into the dimly lit apartment building. In the hallway, he encounters Cindy, her posture rigid, her nerves betraying her anticipation. With unflinching candor, Frank reveals the truth of Alfred Coppersmith's deeds, a truth so monstrous it shatters the fragile calm. Cindy's voice rises in a storm of denial, her cries filled with desperation, rejecting the dark reality Frank has laid bare.
You're just a creep.
She hurls accusations, branding him a creep, her words sharp but meaningless against the Punisher's armor of indifference. Frank stands unmoved, his expression carved from stone. To him, Cindy's insults are but echoes of a greater truth, a truth he has long accepted. Beneath the surface of civility, most people are nothing more than creeps. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this story, please support these great books online or at your local comic book shop.